Hi, everyone. For this month's Cut for Time and Space bonus episode, I wanted to take the time to properly give a tribute to three icons of my childhood that we lost this month. I wanted to do a tribute for one of my favorite Chicago Cubs of all time, Ryne Sandberg. The person responsible for getting me into pro wrestling, well, one of the main reasons why I fell in love with pro wrestling, Hulk Hogan. And then probably my next to Elvis, one of my favorite singers of all time, Ozzy Osbourne. So, couple full disclosures in regards to Ryne Sandberg. Not the biggest, baseball stat person. I just enjoy watching it. I'm not big on stats and all that. But you know, I kind of looked up some stuff about Ryan prior, so it's like, forgive me for not knowing ahead of time, because I don't follow that stuff. But just I'm going to do it in order of, I don't want to say it. I mean, I'm sad all three of these people will pass, but I'm like, in order of influence they had on me. So Ryan is first, Hogan is second, and then Ozzy will be last, because all due respect to all previous mentioned, of the three, Ozzy's was the one that probably hit me the hardest. Not in the sense that, look, the man was diagnosed with Parkinson's, and he's dealt with so much in his life that it's a miracle he even lasted this long, all due respect. But it really stings that he's gone. And so, yeah, this is going to be my tribute to all three of them and my memories of them. And my other full disclosure, as it regards to Hogan, I mean, this is only going to be a tribute to what he meant to me as a kid, and going as a teenager, going into my teenage years. While I absolutely do not condone the stuff he's said and done in recent years. There's no denying. I mean, I'm, in my adult years, I'm not going to talk about that. No, I'm just going to talk about what he did for me as far as growing up, you know, a Hulkamaniac, if you will, and what he did for my childhood. I'm not going to talk about current day, unfortunately. That's neither here nor there. So yeah, I guess without further ado, let's get started with the tributes. First, Ryne Sandberg. Yes, I know the Cubs hat is from when they won the World Series in 2016, but this is the only other Cubs hat I have besides my Pearl Jam one. I did find this though, but I can't confirm nor deny if it's mine or my brother's when we were a baby. Obviously, when we were a baby, because as a kid, there's no way we would fit in that. Our big heads wouldn't fit in this. I don't know how I acquired this, to be honest with you, but this is just a sentiment that I've been a Cubs fan since birth. Um, I'll never forget growing up and then um, watching the games at my grandpa Tony's house in his TV room. He'd be, watching them on his little TV there. Be a nice summer day. Have the window open. Be sitting there next to his TV. He had his TV tray with a Budweiser mug that he never had beer in. It was always soda, and he had his peppermints with him. And we're just, sitting there watching Cubs win or lose. Guys like, Andre Dawson, Mark Grace, Rich Sutcliffe, and of course, Ryne Sandberg. Back in the day, my brother and I would love to play t-ball. And then we also play, without the tee as well sometimes in the backyard. And our backyard, usually everything, there was a field in our backyard, essentially past the fence, because we were right next to a Campanelli Park. And anytime we hit the ball and it would go over the fence, it's basically considered a home run, because by the time you go after it, all the way back there, you're running home. So I can proudly say that I've hit a lot of home runs in that setting. When it came to actual t-ball and little league and all that, I sucked. I was no Ryne Sandberg, that's for sure. But let's think about it. This man, 9-time Golden Glove. That's the most Golden Gloves a second baseman has ever held. He had the most consecutive errorless games at a streak of 123 in a row. That is no errors. That's impressive. Um, at the time, during his time, at one point, he was the most. He was the only second baseman with the most home runs at that time. Overall, he's number 3 with the most home runs uh, at 282. Jeff Kent started like 351 or something like that. Uh, yeah, but like I said, my two, well, Sandberg was always fun to watch. You know, he could hit, he could play defense, you know, like he was a hell of a second baseman. And then the chemistry between him and like Grace, I always loved Grace, and it would be, if it wasn't Sandberg I enjoyed watching, it would be Maud Grace. I enjoyed Maud Grace a lot as well. I had a whole bunch of Cubs starting lineup figures actually back in the day. And spoiler alert, I may or may not have been looking on eBay for Ryne Sandberg, though the Ryne Sandberg one that I had as a kid. Whether I pulled the trigger or not, I'll leave it in post if I do or not. But I had the one where he's like it's like the sliding pose, and then it came with the card, of course. Um. So yeah, the had the pleasure of seeing him live because I went to a Cubs game back in elementary school. Um, can't tell you if they won or lost, and I can't tell you exactly if he was even playing that day, but given the timeline, I would imagine he would be, because I was in grade school, in elementary school. But I, I finished sixth grade in '96. So by summer of '96, I'm already on my way to junior high. Um, and he left the Cubs in '97, so that means I had to have seen him. I would imagine, you know. Uh, I just, in my head, I can't recall at the time. At this time, I apologize. And I couldn't tell you like what game we went to either, because I have no proof of it. I have no ticket. I have no program. Maybe my parents kept it. I don't know, but I don't have it. um, but also, my friend at the time, my best friend at the time, and I was just goofing around more than watching the game anyway at that time. But uh, so I blame my best friend at the time for not uh, making me pay attention to the game. Um, but yeah, Ryne Sandberg was one of a kind, man. Uh, and I just sucks that he's gone. But thank you, Rhino, for all the memories you've gave uh, my grandfather and I, watching Cubs games together. And you will definitely be missed. So, Rest in peace, Ryne Sandberg. Well, let me tell you something, brother. The year was 1990. 6-year-old me rented WrestleMania 6 for the first time. Loved it so much, wanted to keep it. Instead, Dad took the tape, took a blank tape, put it in his camera, or actually, it was either his camera or the VCR, and then recorded the Coliseum home video onto a blank VHS, and then we returned it to the store. But I had my copy. Still do to this day, actually. It's in the closet. I forgot to grab it prior to recording. Shoot. But yeah, if it wasn't for these two, Ultimate Warrior or Hulk Hogan, I wouldn't see me getting into wrestling. I big Hulkamaniac as a kid, huge Hulkamaniac, as you will see in some of these pictures. I had the robe, I had the pajama sets, I had a long sleeve and a short sleeve. We had the wrestling buddies. By the way, I'm pretty sure this headband went to one of those pajama sets, and I can't for the life of me remember which one. And I can't believe this actually still fits. Kind of actually, it is cutting off my circulation, so I'm going to take it off. It's barely fitting. But it's barely hanging on. I clearly didn't wear it a lot. Just look how, this is still pretty good condition, So I must have not wore it that much as a kid. But this is the only piece of Hogan merch that I have from my childhood. And I keep it in my dresser. I kept it in my dresser back home, and I kept it, back my childhood home. And then when we moved down to Florida, I kept it in that dresser, and now I'm keeping it in the current dresser I have. This never left my dresser. I don't know why. I just, I don't know. I was a Hulkamaniac, man. What can I say? Remember back in the days of Hulkamania, and I'll never forget 1990, the year I started getting into wrestling. Like I said, I might have prior to that, but 1990 was the peak year of I'm following this thing from here on out. I'll never forget watching Superstars and seeing him get attacked 35 years ago, by the way. 35 years ago. Seeing him get attacked by Earthquake. Taking him out of action, crushing his, sternum and all that. Little did I know he was out filming a movie, but they wanted you to believe he was out and, in rough shape. And this is when I believed wrestling was somewhat real, Um, but and I remember the day that SummerSlam came out, I didn't grasp, I didn't have a grasp on like pay-per-views, at that time. So I'm thinking it's just on the regular channel that I watch Superstars on. Because back then for me, there was just Superstars or sometimes Wrestling Challenge. This was prior to Monday Night Raw, and like I didn't know, we didn't have cable, so I didn't know it was on USA at the time or whatever that. And I didn't watch primetime wrestling or nothing like that. I just watched Superstars, and that was about it. Or just rented a bunch of old WWF pay-per-views at Blockbuster or New Wave Video, if you will, my old local mom and pop video store that we used to go to a lot. And so SummerSlam, the day that he was supposed to fight Earthquake and get his revenge, I'm bummed because I can't see it. Well, my dad had a buddy, who had a box, and he had him asked him to order it and tape it for me. So I did get to see SummerSlam 1990, and that's one of my top 3 SummerSlams of all time. Holds a special place in my heart because it was my first SummerSlam, and it meant a lot to me to see. Now, yes, granted, he won via turnout. The match itself was okay, but I was happy that he won. Another memory that I'm just thinking about was I was crushed that I couldn't. My parents wouldn't let me see. They wouldn't let me see it, but they wouldn't let me order it. We didn't get to order it. Was WrestleMania 7, and when he fought Sergeant Slaughter, and given Slaughter's reputation at that time, I thought Hogan was done for. I'll never forget. I'm in my room, literally, and I had a Hulk Hogan, one of the Hulk Hogan trading cards, and it was attached. It was behind the memory I have of this, and yet I can't think of other shit as beyond me. But I had this height chart at the time. It's wild shit. It was by my bed. It was it almost looked like a blue ruler, right? This was prior to me getting like the Michael Jordan one that I also would end up having. But I had this generic blue ruler height chart at the time. And so I'm by my bed bawling and looking at this Hulk Hogan trading card that's attached. That's stuck behind my. It is insane. It was absolutely insane. Why I got so distraught over this, I'll never know. But a month later, we did it on Coliseum Video. So it's like, wait, I still saw it, But again, no way of knowing until after it was over, and I'd have to wait a whole week because there was no internet back then. There was no nothing to see if he made it out okay. He did, but I didn't know at the time, and I was devastated. I'll never forget that. And then when he went to WCW, well, I'm sorry. Back up a little bit more. A few years later, we're at the first house show I was ever at. Hogan was not on the card. The second house show, however, he was. The second house show took place in either 93 or 94, I can't remember when. And the main event was the Metamaniacs. So this was about WrestleMania 9 time. So this might have been 93. Yes, 93. The Metamaniacs versus Money Inc. Sergeant Slaughter, now a face, was the special referee. It was at the Rosemont Horizon. And who was in the crowd that night in the front row? Chicago Bulls' own Horace Grant. All right. We had decent seats at this house show. The kind that you probably can't afford today's wrestling. Back then, they were, affordable. We had like ringside. We wasn't ringside, but it was like maybe a good 10, 12 rows back at least. We could see close. We were close to the action. It was some of the best house show seats that we had. Actually, no, the best we had, I believe, might have been the one for Holiday Hell Tour in '96, but that's beside the point. Moral of the story is Hogan, Brutus, defeated Money Incorporated. And not only that, Hogan called in Horace Grant, who hopped the guardrail, and to help him pin down DiBiase when he had him down. So, the image of Hogan pinning him, and then Horace Grant had this, pressed on his back, like so he wouldn't get, so Ted couldn't get up or whatever, and the place went nuts. I'll never forget it. It was awesome. I had a Metamaniacs Metaphone from this event, but now, believe it or not, it is in the possession of one Matt Cardona, aka Zack Ryder, who I traded it with for a signed 8x10 headband and sunglasses. Still a fair trade, and still pretty cool that a wrestler has one of my childhood wrestling merch stand items. But regardless, then of course, just what he did for pro wrestling back then. This was before I knew all the politics and BS and all that, little did I know. But he goes to WCW. And yes, my brother and I have been to Pasta Mania at the Mall of America. It was Hulkios were literally glorified SpaghettiOs, if anything. But for what it was worth, it was a piece of history, and we're glad we got to go before it closed. Nevertheless, Hogan in WCW revolutionizes the wrestling world once again when he turned heel and was the third man and formed the NWO. And probably one of the most biggest heel turns in wrestling history, up until recent day when John Cena turned heel. But nobody saw Hogan turning heel back in 1996 on their bingo card for that year, if you will. But man, the NWO sparked the Attitude Era for WWF, and it sparked the Monday Night Wars as WCW Nitro was going up against WWF Raw. It was an incredible time to be a wrestling fan. And the only other time I saw Hogan wrestle live was on a Monday Night show in October of '98 at the United Center. And it was, on paper, an iconic tag team match. The match itself, it was Bret Hart and Hulk Hogan versus Sting and the Ultimate Warrior. Again, you would think it would be a good epic match, but I think it ended up being a schmaz, and then the NWO came out. And it was all. It wasn't. It was. It wasn't. It wasn't that. It was all right. Nevertheless, the NWO was formed. Hollywood Hogan, if you will, the leader of the pack, alongside Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, Sitz, Eric Bischoff, and a plethora of others. And it was the coolest stable around, man. NWO was it. It had the it factor. And like I said, changed the face of wrestling, you know? Well into my teenage years. I gotta say, you would think that even after NWO that he couldn't, there was no turning back from, once he was heel, like, you would think he would be done, right? Wrong. Because then he would go back to the red and yellow. And this is the only other Hogan shot I have. Because he would go back to the red and yellow. And in fact, once WCW folded, he would eventually go back to, what was then known. Actually, it was still known as WWF when he came back. But then when he left, but then it got changed to WWE. In fact, he was the very last WWF champion and the very first WWE champion. Making more history, right? Even so much so as to have epic matches with WrestleMania 18 against The Rock. And with my favorite wrestler of all time, Shawn Michaels, and SummerSlam 2005. So yeah, I mean, Hulk Hogan to me in my childhood and my, into my teens, that run will always be iconic to me. Later down the line, I kind of got tired of seeing him, but at the same time, for what he's done for my childhood and my teenage years, I can't think of enough. Because wrestling wouldn't be where it is today without Hulk Hogan. And that's a fact, whether you like it or not. So Hulkster, thank you. Thank you for everything. You ended up being my grandpa's favorite too. Actually, both these guys, just like me and my brother, both these guys were my grandpa's favorites. Undertaker, not so much. when he saw what Taker did to both his guys, actually, he didn't like Taker at all. My grandpa, same Grandpa Tony that I would watch the Cubs games with. So, and then of course there's the movies. His movie career, yeah, they weren't the greatest movies, but they were entertaining. I actually just watched 3 the other day. I watched Mr. Nanny, Suburban Commando, and No Holds Barred. Probably my top three right there of Hogan movies, to be honest. So, and then of course Thunder in Paradise was iconic. We had just missed them filming back in '94. We had just missed them filming Thunder in Paradise, but the bar at the Grand Floridian that they had, the Stars Bucket or whatever it was called, um, it was boarded up and it was still there though, at the Grand Floridian, because they filmed at Grand Floridian a lot, and then all over Disney, to be honest with you. But like I said, the boats were on the backlot tours at MGM, and then of course there's Hogan's handprints in front of the MGM studio. Well, what used to be the Great Movie Ride, now it's the Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway. But they still have the handprints there. So, and Hogan's is there. So, yeah, there will never be another Hulk Hogan. And, you know, lots of memories that I will cherish forever because of him. So thank you, Hulk. Rest in peace.